The O'Reilly Factor is on tonight.
There is a cry being made from the ground, and God is hearing the vision of his slain.
High emotion at the funeral for Michael Brown in Missouri as many African Americans believe they do not receive justice in this country. We will have a number of reports.
They are an imminent threat to every interest we have, whether it's in Iraq or anywhere else.
But now, as President Obama returns from vacation, the administration may be downgrading the ISIS threat. Charles Krauthammer on that.
You know the vice president, right?
Man,
I'm going to give you a hint.
Okay, go.
Smoking Joe.
Not crazy.
Also tonight, Jesse Waters venturing into the heart of motorcycle madness. A revved up Waters world ahead. Caution, you are about to enter the no-spin zone from Southern California. Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly, reporting from Los Angeles. Thanks for watching us tonight. As President Obama returns from vacation, the threats from overseas mount. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. We live in a dangerous world, and under President Obama, it's becoming even more dangerous. Yet millions of Americans are not paying attention, and that in itself is dangerous. Reports over the weekend say that Russian tanks have now moved into southeastern Ukraine. We don't know the extent of that, but we do know the Russian tyrant Putin continues to challenge President Obama. In China, warplanes apparently buzzed a U.S. Navy surveillance jet over international waters. The Pentagon calls the situation provocative. And the ISIS army continues its carnage in the Middle East. It's now captured an air base in Syria, even as the Obama administration debates whether or not to attack the terror group in that war-torn country. Now, it's hard to believe the ISIS situation is so out of control when the president knew about the threat for nearly a year. Last Thursday, Defense Secretary Hagel said this about ISIS.
They are an imminent threat to every interest we have, whether it's in Iraq or anywhere else. ISIL is as sophisticated and well-funded as any group that we have seen. They're beyond just a terrorist group.
But this morning, Pentagon Press Secretary Rear Admiral John Kirby seemed to play down the ISIS situation.
Well, I think the general feeling is they're not capable of a 9/11-like style attack on the homeland right now. They certainly could, through the use of foreign fighters, impact Western targets, including American targets, if they so choose.
So once again, we have mixed signals. The Obama administration apparently not knowing how to deal with ISIS. That's disturbing because the USA should be doing everything in its power to crush those savages. If we have to bomb them in Syria, we bomb them. If we have to send in drones to kill their leadership, you do it. America has been equivocating about this threat for far too long. And one of the reasons for that is that many Americans are fed up with fighting wars abroad. On the Republican side, Senator Rand Paul leading that movement.
You know what? We are tired of war. We're worried that Hillary Clinton will get us involved in another Middle Eastern war because she's so gung-ho. If you want to see a transformational election in our country, let the Democrats put forward a war hawk like Hillary Clinton.
On the left, there's also opposition to using military power to crush threats or right wrongs. And it's understandable. With all the chaos in Iraq and Afghanistan, who wants another military involvement? Not talking points. President Obama is correct in being hesitant to put American military forces on the ground. But there are other ways to confront villains and threats to the American people. And here is where President Obama falls down. He does not anticipate dangerous situations. He does not have strategies at the ready. Therefore, the terror threat is rising, and villains like Putin are gaining power. It's just a matter of time before America is harmed by bad people. The murder of journalist James Foley was just a preview of what is very likely to continue to happen on a far greater scale. President Obama must wise up and fast and become far more aggressive in blunting threats to this country. And we, the people, need to start paying attention as well, because it is we who hold the real power in this country. And believe me, we are not using it. And that's the memo. Now for the top story reaction. Joining us from Washington, Fox News analyst Charles Krauthammer. Let's take China first because we haven't talked about that country much. How do you see their aggressive tactics?
Chinese are always very careful. They're very incremental, but they are relentless. And they can see what they would call a paper tiger when they see one. And they have never seen one more thin and less reliable than Barack Obama. I mean, what prevents them from expanding, as they want to do, expanding their influence and their control? And they're pushing into the East China Sea, the South China Sea, into areas that are claimed by all the countries around them, and they are ignoring them and establishing their control with in the air and on the ground in the sea. The one power that would deter them is the United States, but not with this president. So they buzzed one of our planes yesterday. Our reaction is very little rhetorically. Obama decides to send a carrier. I guess he was handled a checklist where it says send a carrier, but is there anything he said, any warning, any explanation to the American people about what's happening? It shouldn't have to happen on this show. It does, but this is not where it ought to be.
Right.
The reason
he doesn't
Obama
define a situation, but I need you to define it. Why is China saber-rattling in international waters, trying to seize islands that have traditionally belonged to Japan, Vietnam, and the Philippines? Why are they doing that?
China has for at least 50 years, you could argue a millennium, but let's say at least since the Second World War, since the communists came to power, wants to dominate the region, wants to dominate the Pacific Rim countries, all of whom are allied with us, South Korea, Japan, the Philippines, all the way down to, in fact, Vietnam, which is a de facto ally of ours. They wanted to dominate, they want to be the regional hegemon, but to do that, they have to get rid of the U.S. Navy. And if they get rid of us, they become the dominant power, control the resources, and they essentially control what the other countries do. If the U.S. is not there, as we have been for 50 years, to deter them and protect the weaker powers, they will become the dominant power.
Okay, but President Obama doesn't really have to define it to the American people because the American people know nothing about it, all right? They just don't know.
Well, that's because he's never said anything about it.
Or the media hasn't said anything about it, and nobody has defined the issue the way we're doing it tonight. So you can go out on the street. I mean, I don't even think most of the American people know about ISIS. I don't think they know because most don't watch television news or read the newspaper anymore. They don't know about the threats.
That's why we have presidents. That's why we have leaders. People have their own lives. They have their own affairs. They have their own livelihoods. They have their families. They have a lot on their plate. When it comes to leadership about what's happening in a far corner of the world, you go to the president. The country was not interested in Europe between the First and the Second World Wars. It needed an FDR who could see what was happening, to mobilize them, at least spiritually, prepare them for Pearl Harbor. We know Reagan was the one who girded us against the Soviets. People, and George H.W. Bush, do you think there was a clamor in the country to kick Iraq out of Kuwait? There was none. But you had a president who understood the stakes, explained them over and over to Americans, was able to rally an alliance behind them after he had said either you come with us or we're going to do this alone, created a coalition. That's called presidential leadership.
All right, so then the final question is, why isn't Barack Obama leading the way many past presidents have? Why?
Look, there are 10 theories I could offer, but the one that strikes me, the one as the most, is he defines himself as anti-Bush. He sees his mission in life as taking us out of wars. That's how he got elected. He thinks that if we leave places, nothing will change and we'll all be safe.
Can't believe that. He can't believe that.
He's governed that way for 5 years.
I know, but he can't believe it, Charles. He can't believe it when he sees people being beheaded in front of cameras. He sees 35,000 miles of territory taken over by a terrorist army. He sees China's provocation and Russia's provocation. He can't believe that nothing bad is going to happen. He can't. That's impossible.
You can't believe that he can't believe it, but he does. I've been arguing this since 2009 when he withdrew our power from Iraq, withdraws. He doesn't do a thing about the expansion of Russia. He barely bats an ally when the Chinese are expanding in the East and South China Seas. He does this for years and years. Now to admit that all of these things have gone sour is to admit that everything he's done for the 5 years has been a mistake and a misunderstanding of the world. That is hard for anyone to do, and with Obama, with his streak of narcissism, it is impossible for him to do.
Yeah, it's almost 6 years now, and but as I said, if we continue down this road, it's going to be disastrous for the country. Charles, thanks very much. Next on the rundown, the funeral of Michael Brown in Missouri. Very emotional. And there are many major issues in play here. We'll cover some of them. Later, Megyn Kelly and I will discuss white privilege. Does it really exist in America? Factors coming right back.